What up, y'all? Forward Fabian Horror. I'm back again with a video, man. I'm doing a reaction to when a Stalker records his descent into madness, man. Be sure to like the video, comment down below, let me know y'all's thoughts in the comment section, and please subscribe to the channel, especially if you guys want to see more of this kind of content, man. This is a horror channel. That's what we specialize in here, and this is from Spoogly. So shout out to Spoogly, man. Let's get into the video.
As I was saying, I'm about to put the sulfuric acid inside. It's unfortunate that we live in a world of monsters that wish nothing more in their hearts to strip you of every possible joy in your life. Just want to make you cry. I am tired of being ignored. My last words, Bjork, her and her loving self.
What the heck? Ricardo Lopez.
In life, we all have a favorite band, or artist, or football team, or YouTuber, or in this case, musician. People that we regularly tune into to watch or listen to their latest hits, or media that they put out. Such was the case with a man named Ricardo Lopez. You see, Ricardo was a massive fan of Bjork, an Icelandic musician sensation that emerged as an icon after her debut album released back in 1993. After just a short time of finding Bjork, Ricardo Lopez could not stop tuning in, or rather, he could not stop at all. What would follow Ricardo's discovery of Bjork would be a 9-month descent into madness and obsession, all of which was recorded on camera for the world to see, as thousands would go on to witness it end in tragedy. This is the horrific stalking story and tapes of Ricardo Lopez and his abhorrent and disturbing mental collapse into infatuation with Bjork.
Like he had a whole breakdown.
This is one of the few mainstream instances of a stalker recording his spiral into insanity. Ricardo Lopez was born on January 14th, 1975, in Montevideo, Uruguay. His family would make the decision to move to the USA a few years after his birth, and they eventually landed in the small town of Lawrenceville, Georgia. From a young age, Ricardo struggled with self-esteem, thinking very little of himself, especially regarding his looks and his body. To those that knew him personally, he was a social recluse, and he preferred to sequester himself inside his family's residence in Lawrenceville. He was not an outright weirdo, not yet at least, and people that knew him at the time described him as easygoing but introverted. Notably, Ricardo had a few male friends, but no female friends or any girlfriend or dating history to speak of. As I mentioned, he struggled heavily with self-esteem issues, and when police would later read and capture his diary, we would see the full extent of those feelings. Lopez wrote about these emotions and these feelings of shame and of being inadequate, as well as his awkwardness while being around women. These feelings of worthlessness.
What do y'all think that stems from? Like the weirdness, the awkwardness. Some kids are naturally like that as they grow into themselves, but like the permanent type of thing, low self-esteem, I think a lot of that has to do with maybe physical appearance. If you don't think you're appealing or attractive, maybe overweight. There's a multitude of things, but I know a lot of overweight kids who are very self-confident, very funny, know how to control a room regardless of what they look like. You know, that's why they always say confidence is within, right? It's not really an external kind of thing, but obviously the externalities can contribute to a heightened sense of confidence. But it's like sometimes you think like it's the upbringing, the household they're in, the parenting. Like as a father, you know, for my future children, one thing I'm gonna like make sure to instill within them is self-confidence. Like as a father, I believe that's my duty, just to make sure that you get an understanding of how the world works, and that has nothing to do with dictating who you can be and how confident you should be in it. Because sometimes it's like, it's one thing to be shy as a child, because that's just, children are not, like, very shy, naive. But as you get older, that's something that you should kind of shake off. Like, to each their own. I'm not here to criticize people's walk, but I'm going to be adamant about instilling that in my children. Like, y'all can't be out here just being a leaf in the wind, getting blown away just because somebody says something about you.
And self-loathing would ultimately lead to his twisted and deranged infatuation with Bjork. Now, while not being an excuse for his actions, Lopez had been diagnosed with a condition known as Klinefelter syndrome. This is a chromosomal disorder that causes males to have an extra X chromosome, which leads to infertility, small testicles, breast growth, gynecomastia, cognitive issues, and delayed or incomplete puberty.
So lower
this
testosterone.
was probably the source of his feelings of inferiority. Despite this condition, deep down in his psyche...
That's what I was going to say. If it's a mental type of thing or like a diagnosis, then like I ain't got nothing to say about that. But if it's just self-inflicted, then that's an issue to me.
Ricardo actually had ambition to succeed. He wanted to become a world-renowned artist, and he wanted people to know his name. And morbidly enough, he became infamous rather than famous. And not for his art, but for the disaster that will unfold in this video.
We'll return after these messages.
Today's video is sponsored by Aura. Now, you might have heard in the news, but last month, literally on with your data, like the either feed and Blee, today's is play command all and for free. Ricardo.
Hey guys.
Comment down below, man. Like the video. Let me know additional horror content y'all want to see from me, man.
Ricardo dropped out of high school to pursue this art career. However, he didn't seriously make any advancement in this due to those inferiority feelings and feeling lesser than everyone around him. In fact, he was so anxious and so scared that he wouldn't even get accepted into art school that he ultimately didn't even try to apply to it. Now, I know you all didn't click on this video for motivation or for advice, and usually it's not in these kind of videos, but
let's tie all that into it, man. That's what I'm saying. Like, if you don't even start, and obviously we know he had a health condition, right? But starting is the biggest thing, man. Start. If there's something you want to do, there's something you want to try, please start. Please try. Don't be locked in fear because, oh, I don't know what's gonna happen. Come on, man. We gotta take that one giant leap forward.
If you want to succeed in life, if you do want to reach the next level in your personal life, your business life, your hobby, anything, you have to take risks. Risks have to become commonplace.
Facts.
You must leap outside of what you know to rise up. Fear will kill your mind and your ambition, and you actually have to enjoy being afraid. You have to take comfort in the fact that you are afraid. And if you do take comfort in that fact, then you never actually will be afraid. You
Took
never
the words
will
out of
feel
my mouth.
less. Take risks, because if you don't, you're eventually going to regret not doing that. Anyways, back to the video. Sorry about that. After dropping out of high school
my brother.
and not pursuing his dream of becoming an artist, Ricardo would work off and on for his brother's pest control business. And it was at this time when the downward spiral into depravity and reclusivity began. At the age of 17, Lopez began to isolate himself from the world. He started to hide in his parents' basement, alone with his thoughts, inside of some kind of twisted echo chamber. As a way to escape the life that he had, he would retreat into his own mind, inside of a world of fantasies and delusions. These delusions eventually manifested into Lopez becoming enthralled by celebrities. This sick addiction and infatuation is not unique to Ricardo Lopez. In fact, there's an entire medical diagnosis for this condition that's known as celebrity worship syndrome. Professionals now believe that Ricardo Lopez was in fact suffering from celebrity worship syndrome. This obsession would eventually manifest into an unhealthy fixation on Bjork Stoder. I am so terribly sorry for how I butchered that. I genuinely apologize. Lopez became hyper-fixated on the Icelandic singer's life. He began to gather up all the information that he could about her. documenting every little detail in his personal diary. He would construct and write and send fan letters and talk about her as often as he could in this diary. At this point, Lopez actually began to tell the few people that were in his life still that grotesque fixation in reality. For the next few months, this addiction and this obsession grew. It festered into a grotesque fixation on someone he didn't even really know. With every passing hour, Lopez was disconnected from any sense of reality that he had left. He was spiraling further and further into the abyss of depravity. He wrote in his diary that his lifelong goal, his one great achievement, his longing was to be accepted by Bjork and to be in her life as someone that she knew personally.
This is crazy to me, bro. I didn't even realize that there was a whole sickness tied to celebrity obsessing or obsessment. I don't even know if obsessment's a word, but I didn't even realize that was a real thing. But man, in today's day and age, I know it's always been a thing. People are popular. Celebrities have always been looked at like, oh, or people just super in love. But nowadays, more than ever, with the social era, Instagram, things of that sort, people are literally stalking celebrities, right? And they're obsessed. And funny enough, a lot of people use celebrities as an example for everything. Oh, well, if you look at such and such, well, such and such does this, which is not an exact representation of one's life, right? Because not everybody's celebrity. You can't compare how a celebrity lives to your life because, come on, man, they're living an anomaly, essentially, of a lifestyle. So you can't try to, it's like really comparing opposite ends of the spectrum. Well, such and such does this. Well, that's a celebrity who's likely a multi-millionaire. Their life doesn't compare to yours. So when people use celebrities as an example or people to look up to, that's when you go wrong. That's when you go wrong.
He had fantasies about inventing a time machine just so he could go back in time to the 70s and befriend her as a child. That way he could have an effect on her and know her personally.
Are you older than 18?
That's some real messed up in the head type of thinking. Like, it's got to be a mental illness because for that to be an average person's thoughts, nah.
I feel it in my head, you know. Now I'm thinking about one day she'll ever see this. Like I have all my taped library to see who I really am, you know, who I really was. You know, maybe she's curious, maybe she'll have an interest in me, you know. Fucked up, but that's how I think. My major conclusion today is that all what I'm gonna do, my infection process, major thing I want for her while she's dying, okay, I want to be the most influential person, just like in my fantasy about going back in time and taking back the material for her to, you know, all her material and stuff like that. I'll talk later. But I want to be the biggest influence on her life, the man, the most influential, the most important person who changed her life more than anybody else, okay? The guy who took her life.
At this point, a few months had passed since this obsession was born, and things were just getting worse. Lopez's diary grew to an outstanding 800 pages in length, many of them containing his feelings of inadequacy due to being overweight and fat, and these repeated
Bruh should have just wrote a book and published it. Like, you would have been better off, man. 800 pages, that's several books, actually.
marks of his own awful self-image and the embarrassment he had because of his gynecomastia. He wrote that he was, quote, a loser who never even learned to drive. In total, his diary would contain 168 references to his feelings of being a failure, 34 references to suicide, 14 references to murder, and shockingly, 408 references to Bjork. He could not stop thinking about her. The idea of her, he grasped at it as if it was the very air that he inhaled. The food he consumed, the blood in his veins, she was his everything, and she didn't know who he was. This would all come to heel in the year of 1996, when Bjork began to have a romantic relationship with another musician named Goldie. In Lopez's mind, he had just gotten betrayed by the one thing he loved. Someone took what was rightfully his, in his own demented, twisted mind. His delusional obsession had caused him to not see what was actually happening, and instead he began to tell these lies to himself over and over, and it came to the point where he believed his own lies. Lopez thought Bjork shared all these sentiments he did. He thought that the last 8 months of his life of obsessing over Bjork was shared, and they both had these feelings for each other. Quote, "I wasted 8 months, and she has a f***ing lover," end quote. Bjork's new partner, Goldie, had taken the spot that Lopez saw himself in, this invisible throne at the right hand of Bjork, and he wouldn't have it. He couldn't deal with it. So he started to fantasize how he could punish her and enact revenge of betraying someone that she didn't know existed. At this point, Lopez would stop writing in his diary and would instead transition to what are now these infamous videotapes that you've been seeing through the video. Lopez lived alone in a small apartment at this time in 1996, and as so, he was able to fully delve into his delusional world with no one to keep him in check. These videos would document that final collapse into insanity and would capture the spiral of this stalker into his obsession, his infatuation, and eventually his end. Lopez would say that the purpose of these tapes and recordings was to offer a documentation of my life, my art, and of my plans. In total, Lopez would record 11 videotapes, each with around 2 hours of footage inside of them, and the contents of these tapes are extremely disturbing and grotesque. For one, they show his awful collapse from a physical standpoint, but more insidiously, they lay out his plans to murder Bjork. These tapes would document Lopez's entire revenge plot as it expanded from a very small idea into this massive obsession. Obviously, I won't be able to show all the full clips in this video, but they are in a playlist on YouTube in their entirety. They're very disgusting to watch. I watched all of them while making this video. There's 20 plus hours of footage, and you can really see the fall off and the breakdown of this man's mental state while watching it. I will include the clips that are relevant to this video, but like I said, you'll have to go find them on YouTube yourself if you want to watch them in their entirety. I'm also going to be blurring like disturbing things that might get me demonetized and stuff, of course. I'm already on a watch list from the CIA, so. Ricardo Lopez's revenge plan was simple to him.
Bruh's on a watch list from the CIA? What, hey, that kind of lets you know what kind of videos he be making.
He wanted to punish Bjork and leave a lasting impact on her so she could never forget him. At first, Lopez's plan was to make a bomb that was filled with hypodermic needles that contained HIV-infected blood. Lopez had hoped that this bomb would be mailed to Bjork's address, she would open it up, it would explode, and it would infect her with HIV. And in his twisted mind, that is how he would leave this lasting effect on her. After all, that's what he wanted to do. He wanted her to know who he was, to affect her in some way, and he thought this was the best.
This is wild. This is just a true form of spiraling at the utmost extent. Kind of makes me think of like how John Lennon passed. You know, I don't know too much about his murderer, but his killer was a weirdo. You know, I'm pretty sure dude was a stalker, the dude that killed Lennon. And then it makes me, who was it, Versace, that got killed outside of their own, like, didn't Lennon get killed outside of his own home, and then Versace got killed similarly due to someone's obsession with him or some type of guilty plea. Yeah, Versace was assassinated too by Andrew Cunanan. And I think it's along the similar lines because he had a certain obsession. But, you know, don't quote me on that. But it was another spiral. If you look into dude's story, he spiraled. He spiraled as well.
I want for her, while she's dying, okay, I want to be the most influential person, just like in my fantasy about going back in time and taking back the material for her to, you know, all her material and stuff like that. I'll talk later. But
He quickly realized that would not be possible to construct, so he moved to his plan B, a letter bomb with sulfuric acid. If you're not aware what a letter bomb is, it's essentially a bomb that's sent through the mail, and when opened, it detonates on the person that opens it. Lopez had designed this letter bomb inside of a hollowed out book, filling those hollowed out areas with the sulfuric acid. His plan was to send this book with the acid to Bjork's home in London, England. He hoped that she would open the package and instantly open the book, thinking it was some kind of fan mail or something, and the acid would spray on her and maim her or disfigure her. He stated in his tapes that his goal was to send this book and have her disfigured or kill her after she opened it. The final part of this awful revenge plan would end with Lopez committing suicide. That way, he and Bjork would be united together in heaven. The groundwork was laid, the bomb was made, his plan was happening, and in Lopez's mind, he would finally be in heaven with his love, the object of his infatuation, his muse, his everything. He would finally be with her.
Hopefully this plan didn't
On the
come to
morning of
pass.
September 12th,
Because I'm not familiar with Bjorn or Bjork. I don't know what's going to happen here, but hopefully this wasn't able to execute.
1996, Lopez began to film the final and the most famous video entry in his series. He titled this tape, Last Day, Ricardo Lopez. And it began with Lopez taking the letter bomb to the post office to mail it to Bjork's house.
nervous. I don't think I've ever been this nervous. Well, I have been more nervous than this. I took 2 Braxo. We'll walk over there. I have my handgun loaded in my sack here. So if I don't return, I just want to say goodbye to everybody. And because I'm certainly not going to get arrested. I'm going to blow my head off. Oh man, I better hurry up and go now. I'm going to go now. I'm going to go now. I'm going to go now. It's 9 o'clock.
He claimed in the video that he was very nervous about attracting attention to himself or somehow looking suspicious to the post office service. But he ended up mailing the letter bomb, and after he mailed the package, he went back to his apartments and he began the plan to end his life. He would turn on Bjork's music in the background, strip naked, and begin to shave his head, his eyebrows, and cover his face with red and black paint. The monster on the inside would finally make itself manifest on the outside. Authorities believe that he disfigured himself like this in order to make himself more unrecognizable when he looked in the mirror. That way he would have an easier time committing suicide. As I mentioned earlier, and from his diary, he could not stand himself in life, and he also couldn't stand himself in death either.
Raiders, Chiefs, Black Friday football. Pre-game at 1:30 p.m. Eastern.
Yeah, I've heard of that. People like trying to alter their whole external appearance because it creates a sense of disconnection or disassociation. Maybe that would be easy for him to off himself, but I don't know. I guess from a psychological aspect, it makes sense to these guys.
Head, shaved eyes, stand himself in death either. Once adorned with his shaved head, shaved eyebrows, and painted face, he told the camera that he was feeling a little nervous now, and the gravity of the situation was hitting him. Chillingly, he stated that he was not intoxicated, and that he was not depressed, and that he knew exactly what he was doing. Although all of those are likely a lie.
So maybe noontime is when I'll blow my... Yeah, might as well get it over with today, because what's the use now? A little weird feeling, finally doing what you accomplish.
As Bjork's song, titled I Remember You, finished playing, Lopez loaded and chambered a round into his .38 caliber, stopped filming, and it was stuck on the single last frame that showed a hand-painted sign he made with the words, quote, "The best of me, September 12th," on the wall. He committed this act in front of this sign, and police theorized that his goal was to cover this sign with his life in his disgusting mind. But much like his life and his actions, no blood, no insides, no brains were splattered on the poster, and all that remained was an empty, white canvas with nothing underneath the best of me. It was also discovered that the bullet was not the cause of death either. Instead, He simply bled out, meaning for several minutes he was laying there, unable to move, feeling and likely regretting everything he had just done to himself.
Crazy.
Not a single drop of him was on that poster. It would turn out that the .38 caliber revolver was not strong enough to do this. In a twisted way, he died wanting to leave his mark on Bjork, and he physically couldn't even do that with the poster. 4 days later, his body was found in his apartment after complaints of a foul smell. On the wall of the apartment, in front of the camera, was a note for the police. Quote, "The 8mm tapes are a documentation of a crime. They are for the FBI." End quote. The Broward County Sheriff's Office evacuated the building instantly and began to watch all 22 hours of footage. Once the final tape was watched, police notified Scotland Yard to warn them of that bomb that Lopez had sent. Luckily, the package had not been delivered yet, and it was intercepted at a South London post office. It was then located and disposed of. The package would have likely never even reached Bjork, since all of her mail that was intended for her was sent and vetted through her management's office first. She would have never even known about it. And unbeknownst to Lopez, a few days before he ended his own life, Bjork ended her relationship with Goldie. 6 days after
That wouldn't have made
Ricardo...
him any less crazy. You know what I'm saying? If she just ended a relationship, dude already lost it. That's wild. That's wild.
Lopez took his life, Bjork walked outside of her home in London. She was swarmed by the paparazzi, and someone asked how she felt about the Stalker incident. Bjork would go on to describe herself as very depressed by the incident. She said, "It's terribly terrible. It's a very sad thing that someone would face off. I make music, but in other terms, you know, people shouldn't take me too literally and get involved in my personal life." Later that year, she sent a letter and flowers to the Lopez family.
My thing is, you would think he would actually get an understanding of if whether the package arrived or not. Dude is just thinking that it's going to get there and he's got to kill himself because they're both going to be together in the afterlife in heaven. And it's like, you have no understanding of what happened to the package. If the premise was exactly for the package to arrive so that Bjork could open it and she, you know, God forbid, would pass away, you didn't even really understand where the final destination of the package was, or if it made it there. But he automatically jumped to killing himself. I don't know. I like, it makes you really wonder and question if he would have done it if he understood that the package never arrived. But then at that point, you would probably assume that he would continue trying to harm her. So it's probably better off, you know, that he's not around, you know. Say that in the most respectful way. But if you got somebody out there who's willing and wanting to cause harm to somebody else, like, that person needs to be reprimanded.
Bjork would go on to state that she was more so worried about the safety of her son than of herself. And fans speculate that after this incident, she became more distant and less involved in the public eye. And understandably so. But it just goes to show the kind of person that Bjork is. Feeling sorry for Ricardo despite the disturbing and awful things he did, and even sending the letter and the flowers to his family. And that takes a strong kind of person. This case was about a disturbed man who became obsessed with a celebrity that did not know of him at all. I usually don't like to draw parallels or make lessons or stories out of things like this, but I believe this is a great warning sign about the dangers of parasocial relationships. These are relationships between people online that don't...
Doring is a...
People be obsessed with people online. That's why these folks be getting catfish left and right.
Don't really know each other personally, just that online version of themselves. This is becoming a rising issue in the world of content creation, and it creates a very dangerous dynamic between people. Now, Ricardo Lopez's case is an extreme example of parasocial relationships, but it still needs to be talked about. He believed that since he knew Bjork's music and her life, because he stalked her and was thinking about her constantly, he thought that meant that they knew each other. It consumed his entire mind so that he had no room for logic or reason. In his final moments on Earth, his last goal was to make that statement by painting himself all over that poster. The best of me. But nothing happened. And that is the legacy that he leaves behind.
That's crazy, man.
Thank you for watching.
That's wild. That's when the Stalker records his descent into madness, man. Let me know y'all's thoughts on that one in the comment section below. Spoogly, shout out to Spoogly for the video, man. He definitely made some good points outside of, you know, documenting this Ricardo Lopez story. He made some good points along the lines of, you know, self-esteem and you know, taking risks towards what you want to do in life, not just being scared and afraid. I mean, you have to put yourself out there. If you have an idea or a plan, you got to put it into works. And also just the whole perspective of the era we live in, the social dynamic, and, you know, people glorifying things that we really shouldn't. Obviously, I talked a bit about celebrities being glorified to an extreme extent nowadays, because people really, the social era, people are trying to stalk their every move and see where they are. And, you know, social media is definitely a huge hindrance to the mind. You know, it manipulates one into thinking that's a certain reality when that's not even the real world you live in. And you can be like celebrities when these guys are just one in a million. You know, celebrities are one-offs, man. You can't compare your life to a celebrity's life. And the fact that people take things on the internet so seriously, like people who are willing to live a whole reality through a social media page. You know, it's like, get out there and be who you are in the real world, not hidden behind, you know, pictures, photos, and filters. So, you know, there's a lot of truths. There's a lot of truths emphasized throughout this whole video. So let me know y'all's thoughts on this in the comment section below. Peace, love, prosperity. God bless. We'll see y'all in the next video. We out.